Welcome to the virtual Common Council meeting for the City of Milton, Tuesday, December 7th, 2021 at 6 p.m. Can I get confirmation of appropriate meeting notice?
Meeting notice was posted at Hometown Ace Hardware, Milton Piggly Wiggly, and Milton City Hall.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Pledge of Allegiance behind Inga's shoulder there, like usual. We'll say it together. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, are there any public comments regarding items which can be affected by council action? Is there anybody on our Zoom meeting that's not here with one of our groups presenting tonight? Inga, anybody in the waiting room?
Nope, nobody's in the waiting room right now.
Okay, let's go on to approval of the consent agenda.
I would so move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion is approved. Okay, moving right along. Presentations by Fire and EMS Services referendum request for proposal respondents. And I'll let Al take it from here.
Yeah, so as the council may recall, we approved an RFP for fire and EMS service referendums. We know we have a referendum forthcoming in the year 2022. The exact date of that referendum has yet to be set, but we're hoping whoever the selected consultant is that the council goes with will be able to assist us in some of the logic and thought as to what's the best time to go. And hopefully we can coordinate efforts with the town as well. Had some conversations with both entities over the last couple of weeks about tonight's presentations. So we do have Mueller Communications and Red Shoes. They are both our RFP respondents, and they both have little presentations for you this evening. And there will be time for questions at the end of each presentation, or if the council so chooses, wait until the end of both presentations to ask the questions. One important thing to note, each respondent did provide us with a cost for their services. I have that information, but I haven't shared it yet with the council because I thought it would be prudent to kind of try to judge the presentations on their merit. And then we can talk about costs afterwards at a subsequent meeting if we decide to make a decision at a future meeting in December or early January. You know, certainly that will be a big part of the consideration. But as part of the RFP proposal, we asked for costs to be submitted under a separate and a separate sealed envelope as to judge the presentations and proposals at their own merit. So I think I wanted to point that out. So just both the presenters understand that the council has not seen those cost sheets yet, as well as the council that I have those, and they will be forthcoming. But just kind of wanted to make sure everybody was on a level playing field on day one. So we'll hopefully listen to the presentations and then make a decision, like I said, either in December or early January. And then hopefully with the select consultant, we work together very closely. At the end, have a very successful referendum, and we go on our way and we become an outstanding reference for whoever that is that helps us pass that referendum. That's everybody's goal, right? We get a referendum passed, you get a great reference, and we all win. So that's the plan tonight. Unless there's other questions or suggestions from the council, there is no particular order in which they are listed on. I listed them as Mueller going first and Red Shoes going second, only because that's the order in which I received the responses. So no magic to that either. So if there's any questions from any Anissa or the council, otherwise that's all I have, and certainly they can start whenever they're comfortable.
Well, great.
Good evening, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm James Madlam with Miller Communications, and I have my colleague here as well, Mia Trippi. And we do have, as referenced, a handful of slides that we can use to support the presentation. Mia, are you able to present those?
I believe so. I think it should now be starting to share. Give me 1 second. All
Yep,
right.
we can see it.
You can see it all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Well, again, so we do, as mentioned, have a handful of slides we'll walk through for our presentation. Typically, this is the point where we would say we much prefer this to be a dialogue and a discussion. I know that's not always the easiest in this virtual setting, but please do feel free to stop us at any time as we go through with any comments or questions for us. So
perfect.
Advance to the next slide. So as we referenced in our proposal, we've supported quite a few public safety referendums in the past. It's an area that we see a huge growth in demand for, and one that we continue to see an increase in growth across the state. A decade ago, only 4 communities had sought to increase their property tax limits via referendum. And we see that increasing every year because of the fiscal challenges, constraints facing communities. At Miller Communications, we have been well equipped to help organizations through all of their communications need, including municipalities, as they pursue public education on referendum. At our core, we are strategic problem solvers, and some days that means helping clients manage a challenge crisis situation. Some days it's launching a digital marketing plan to support business leads or talent recruitment. And other days it's helping organizations with referendums.
Exactly that. A lot of the clients that we work with really do include municipalities, public sector efforts like a referendum project. We have a longstanding partnership with the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, acting as an on-call service to all of the member municipalities whenever the need for some communication support arises. Oftentimes that takes the shape of a crisis, other times maybe more of a proactive effort, just kind of depends on the situation. But as a result of that partnership and all of the work that we've done with other municipalities, we do have a pretty deep understanding of local government challenges facing governments like yourselves, whether it's on the public safety side or elsewhere. And that knowledge really helps us to improve the referendum process for you. We've got the experience to enable us to ask the right questions, to make sure that we can go out to the community and be sure that they're understanding kind of what the lay of the land is, and helping us kind of mitigate any concerns that they may have about how the referendum will impact their lives or their community. To James' point, we've got a true 360 approach here, from a digital perspective all the way through to earned media, to PR, to conversations with reporters, helping to support updates to your website that may help the community really understand what's going on. And we kind of approach every situation with this in mind. Oh, did someone have a question? Oh, maybe not.
Great.
Oh, I'm going to skip that.
So, if you want to take us to the next slide, one of the things that makes us unique is our deep bench strength. While you have 2 members of the team here today, we have nearly 30 full-time staff members who have a diverse range of experience. We have former print and broadcast journalists, local and state legislative staffers, and individuals who learn their craft in corporate environments. And what that means is that you always have somebody available to you to answer your question, and that we're able to draw from this broad range of expertise to meet your needs. That said, we do put together a custom-built team for each client that brings together those unique skills to ensure that you get the full range of service that you need. And if you want to take it to the next slide, again, you have 2 of us here today. We've included on this slide a handful of other members of the team that we included as part of our proposal. And then finally, before we get into the core of the proposal itself, again, just want to mention that we have done a lot of work in the referendum space and providing support to communities in public education around referendums. Each one of those to date has been successful in passage. You'll see here a couple that are examples of that in the past, places like South Milwaukee and Fond du Lac, as well as communities that we're currently engaged with on similar efforts in Pleasant Prairie, Fort Atkinson, and the Western Lakes Fire District, and we remain engaged in discussion with a number of other communities that are beginning the process of considering whether this is an avenue that they will take to help them meet their public safety needs in their community. So just as a high level overview, the approach that we often take in communities is to take a three-step approach where we begin with helping the community identify what are the options available to them to meet the public safety needs that they've identified. We will articulate that usually in the form of an options assessment for the community. We then usually take that to the community to have them provide their perspectives in the form of a survey. And if in that process, the community determines that a referendum is the way to proceed, we work with the community on providing broad public education to help inform the electorate of the outcomes, what it would mean if the referendum passes, and what it would mean if the referendum were to fail. In the case of your community, you have done a lot of the work already that would take place normally in the first two stages of our process. Especially given the work that you've done with the Public Policy Forum, which has taken a deep dive in your community, really helped to assess what your needs are and what the options are available to you. And you've determined really what that outcome should be. So we're really at the third phase of this process, which leads to the recommended approach that we put together in our proposal.
Great. So jumping into what that proposal looks like, what our approach with the City of Milton would include. I'm just going to flip to the next slide here. So to James' point, we're thinking a condensed version of that three-step process, right? Skipping ahead to really the public education phase of things, focusing on kind of understanding for our team what's happening behind the scenes, what has already happened to date, what is the recommendation of the policy forum, and taking in all of the information that you guys have pulled together, but making sure that we're bringing the community along with us. So we educate them on what has already been done, why this is the best approach to take to make sure we're meeting the public safety needs of the community, making sure that fire and EMS services are available to residents when they need them. So to do that, we would do a number of things here, right? As mentioned, kind of that outreach plan and strategy that would include a lot of that kind of background information that we'd be sure we're aligned with you on. And then looking at some communication materials, including key messaging, fact sheet FAQs, to be sure that we've got a comprehensive kind of playbook to work from, that we're all aligned on, that we're being consistent with, and ensuring that that folks can really understand what we're talking about, and to answer any questions or misconceptions that may come up. We would then use those sort of baseline communications materials in a number of outreach approaches, ranging from direct mail, so ensuring that every household in the community receives several pieces of information directly to their homes that explains what is the situation, what is the need for this referendum, and what are we going to get out of it. In addition to that direct mail, we'd look at things like posters and display graphics that would be able to be, visible at places like City Hall, Facebook pages, the website, things like that, where people will go as kind of a hub for information. We'll also help you build out a presentation deck. So when we're out in the community having conversations, supporting informational meetings, there's one sort of playbook of materials where we are consistently sharing the same information and key messages about, again, that need for this referendum and what it will mean for the community. In addition to kind of those direct outreach approaches, we would also include some support on the online side, right? So making sure that key messages are up on the website, that we have a place where folks can go to learn more about what this means for them. Sometimes this may include a calculator on the website where folks can type in sort of the value of their home or their property taxes in the past and can get a sense for what would this mean for me and my bill moving forward. We would come up with a calendar of social media posts to help the community understand through the channels that they're on, right? Their Facebook page, Twitter, things like that, kind of what's happening. That would be a weekly calendar that we'd push out starting in, 2 months before the referendum takes place. So whether that's June or September, depending on kind of when we decide to move forward with a referendum. We'd also recommend a paid social media campaign targeting the community to be sure that everyone is pushed information, even if they don't follow social channels for the city, they can get that information again where they spend time. In addition to that, if there are email or e-newsletter or newsletter channels that we could communicate via, that's also something where we'd want to have messages. In addition to all of the kind of owned content that we can control, we'd also like to go out with some earned media outreach, working with local reporters and publications to be sure that we've got interviews lined up with some key individuals. So whether that's leadership on the fire side or EMS side, or from the city, who's able to really help articulate why this is happening, what this means, and what the need is. We can look through this timeline a little bit. I know you guys also have access to this, so I'm not going to word out, but we did sort of sketch this out on a weekly basis, knowing that it's something that we'd like to look at to figure out if August or November makes sense, making this a little bit more generic of kind of when we'd start this. So looking about 7 months out from the referendum to start building those initial communications materials and those messages before launching into that outreach in earnest about weeks before election day. James, did I miss anything? Anything you'd add to that before we jump into questions?
No, I think you covered it quite nicely, Mia. Thank you. We would welcome the opportunity to answer any questions that you have.
And can we take down the screen sharing so we get a better view of everybody, please? Thank you. And thank you for the presentation.
Of course.
I guess one question that I would have is, have you worked with townships and rural communities in the past?
Yes, we have. James, do you want to talk a little bit about some examples of that? Otherwise, I'm happy to talk specifically about some of the referendum clients that we've had a little bit more. We're based in Milwaukee, but certainly worked with communities that are not quite as large as we are, or a Madison or an Oshkosh. So, James, do you want to maybe take a first stab at that?
For sure, yeah. So a couple of things on that front. We, through our relationship with the league, have worked with a wide range of municipalities throughout the state, many of them in rural communities. So that we're very accustomed to that. And relative to public safety referendum work, I mean, the size of the communities have varied pretty significantly. We're doing work right now in Western Lakes, for example, where it's a mix of communities that are, you have cities there, but you also have a lot of townships and smaller communities that are part of that.
Okay, thanks. I will just go around to council members like I usually do and see if anybody has questions right now. I'll start with Larry.
Yeah, I just had a general question. It might be a tough one to answer, but in terms of the referendum itself, which do you think is the greater obstacle based on your experience with other referendums? Is it A, the amount of money you're asking people to put forth, or is it B, that they just didn't understand what was trying to be accomplished with the money they've been asked to put forth? It's a tough question, perhaps, but I wonder if you.
Well, yeah, so Larry, I mean, I think you've hit the nail on the head on what are the two most critical factors in the successful referendum. There has to be a compelling narrative that the community understands about what the need is. And that is really what the public education campaign is built around, is to help understand what is it that has led the community to this situation, what is the need that elected leaders have identified because they're so close to it, because they have to grapple with these issues. And how do you explain that in a clear and concise way to the community that they understand how it impacts them. And that is the number one most important thing, is to make sure that that is clearly understood and the case is really, really clear. Sometimes we have been engaged by communities early in a process, and there isn't a clear and compelling case to be made at times. And that has been situations where we've given them advice to look at other paths and look at other opportunities before going down this path, because we didn't necessarily think that it was something that had a great likelihood of success from a referendum perspective. I would also say, relative to your second point, there is no question that the larger the ask is relative to the size of current property tax bill, the more challenging it is to overcome any opposition that might exist to it. There's a greater likelihood that opposition may get stirred up in the community over those numbers. Our general experience, though, is that if there is a compelling narrative, if the community is able to explain why this is needed, be able to show their homework, that this is something that we've done. As large as the ask is, it's one that's well supported by the research that we've done in our own departments, externally. In this case, you've got a public policy forum report, sort of an outside voice that is weighing in, sort of validating the needs that exist in the community that can overcome the size of the ask.
Thank you.
Barry. Linda?
Thank you for the presentation. It was very nice and easy to understand. I guess what my question would be is, how many fire police referendums have you done?
So we have engaged in 2 prior successful referendums that have passed, and we are currently engaged in 3 more as we speak today.
Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Devin.
Very good presentation. Thank you for presenting. I don't have any additional questions at this time.
Lisa?
Oh, I too want to thank you for the presentation. I found it very informative, but I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Am I missing Ryan? I can't find Ryan on my screen.
Here.
Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay, Ryan.
I don't have any questions.
All that work. Bill?
Talk a little bit about the ability to talk fire speak, I guess. I know over the past couple of years, as we've gone through this, there's been a lot of new terminology and a lot of new acronyms that I've encountered. Talk about the ability of your firm to talk in the appropriate jargon and lingo.
Absolutely. So our first job with any client, whether they are a municipality, whether they're a fire department, whether they're a manufacturing firm, is to really go to school on that organization, better understand who they are, how they talk, what's important to them. And then it's to serve as the translator between that organization and their stakeholders, in this case, the electorate. There is a lot of jargon really in every industry. And oftentimes it's our job as communicators to take that jargon and put it in the language that an everyday person who's not in that industry will understand. And so that's really at the heart of what we're doing every day with referendum work, but also just in general with our client base.
And I'll just add that any of the final messaging or materials that you'll see from us will probably be stripped of that jargon to be sure that it is really accessible and digestible by your everyday person. So asking those hard questions kind of behind to ensure that we are presenting maybe those technical terms accurately, but in words that anyone can understand.
Thank you.
Are there any questions from staff?
I don't have any questions. certainly have had a couple of conversations with Mia on the phone. So, yeah, nothing in my head.
All right. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation and the materials. And we will move on to Red Shoes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, ready to go. I'll start out here. Give a brief introduction. It's kind of like old home week for me.
Oops.
Jeff,
I'm
you're-
having trouble.
yeah,
hearing.
you're
I
really
don't know.
quiet,
Yeah.
Jeff.
Right? Okay. Let me, I can do with my mic. Is this better? Is that any better?
It's a little bit better.
Be any better now?
Now get as close as you can and talk as loud as you can, I guess.
Quiet?
I can hear you better now.
You can hear me better now?
Yeah, I can hear you better now, but like nobody breathe heavily or cough.
Sorry about that. I'm not sure how to get it to go any louder, but it didn't work off of the headset. Give you a little bit of a background on where we're headed tonight and what we're going to cover. We're going to talk about our proposal. My background is all public safety. As you know, my work with Milton was with RW Management Group, which was my company. 2 years ago, McMahon purchased and acquired RW Management Group, and now it's an even bigger group. And we have the Public Safety Municipal Management Group as part of McMahon, and I run that group, and we have about 20 consultants that work on all different public safety or public management issues. So we're here tonight to review our proposal. We have a partnership with Red Shoes, Inc. We look at referendums and work especially with fire EMS and public safety in general, that it's not just marketing and communication, it's also education. And it's important that we have fire EMS operations side and needs and understand fire and EMS, and it's a team effort for the project. So a little bit, we have a little bit more about McMahon Public Safety Municipal Management. We're a leading consulting firm. All of our consultants are experienced, have real life experience working in the public sector and are still working in the public sector. And we're active with many of the associations. We're active with the league. We're active with the Wisconsin City County Managers Association, the Police and Fire Associations, also Police Chiefs Association. If we go to the next slide, the team from McMahon will be myself, and you know my background, and I've kind of given you a little bit of that. Kevin Bierce is currently the Pewaukee Fire Chief. He's also past Wisconsin State Fire Chiefs President and past Mavis President. So he's very familiar with Mavis, and I know you've talked about Mavis and you're somewhat aware of the mutual aid box alarm system, which is mutual aid fire protection throughout the state. So Kevin's with our group, and Robert Whittaker is the North Shore Chief. North Shore Fire Chief. That's the largest consolidated department in the state. So the three of us have extensive background. We've all worked together for 10 or more years and will be involved in this whole project from McMahon.
Hi, thank you everyone for having us here this evening. I hope I'm probably coming out too loud from my end. Thank you again. So just a little bit of a background on Red Shoes. We've been working with McMahon for at least a couple of years now. So we really specialize in strategy. So well-versed in emergency crisis management. And along with that, we work with municipalities every day. So we understand the complexity, the government, all the pieces that go together to really be strategic when it comes to communications. We service and have clients nationally. And we're also known, much like Jeff mentioned, as the agency to call in crisis situations. So again, that can be from the municipal end of things, private companies, but really are well-versed and the agency to call when it comes to those types of situations. We also, in our past, led efforts for the Fox Valley Technical College $65 million referendum, which many of you are probably familiar with, which was focused on fire and emergency training. This is a number of years ago, but it was a heck of a referendum, very strategic in our approach and how we went about that size of a referendum, and especially coming off the heels of the recession back in 2010. And then, as I mentioned, the emergency planning and communications. And that's why we're thrilled to be here with McMahon and Jeff and his group in particular, because you bring these two pieces together with his deep experience of fire and municipalities, how the government works, along with our experience in municipal work, and also that emergency management and crisis communications, and with the referendum work behind us. So just to go over some of the team members that are on this call today, there's myself, the president and owner of Red Shoes, been working at this. I think it says 28 years, and I think I got to update that. It's more like 30 years. Can't believe I'm saying that. Also Megan, who is on this call, and she has been steeped in working with municipalities across our region and across the state. So well experienced in the type of work that we're talking about this evening. If you go to the next slide. We also have Tracy on the call, and then also a media relations specialist when it comes to working with the media day in and day out. And this would be the team that you're working with day in and day out, but also we have it structured so that there would be your point of contact every day, so you know exactly who you're working with. And then this is more of the breadth of the team behind the scenes. So if you talk about the city of Milton and our points of difference, Jeff, if you wanted to talk a little bit about this.
Sure. I mean, the first section we talk about is the work that we've done already with Milton. We're familiar with the people. We're familiar with the departments, the fire stations, the service area, the board, the fire board, and what you've gone through and kind of what you've been going through, kind of been paying attention to what you've been going through the last 2 years and some of the changes since I was there last in 2018. So I think that's extremely important. I think that's important, especially for the referendum. That all that's been going on, and especially in the last year, is going to have a lot of effect on where this referendum goes. We also have, our team that I mentioned, the three of us from McMahon, have all strong fire EMS backgrounds. And if you put the three of us together, even though I'm the oldest, and I hate to admit this, we have over 80 years of public safety experience put together. And we do know the language. We do speak the speak, and we know who to connect with, and we know who's available. We'd be available at presentations, and we'd be available to answer questions and provide a lot of information. Lisa, you want to cover the last two?
Yep. And then just to add to that, again, just going over what Jeff was saying, and then combined with our experience in working in PR and municipalities. So one of the questions during the last presentation was about working with rural communities, smaller communities. We have deep experience, current experience in working in rural communities across the board when it comes to communications and outreach. And then also, as we like to say, that we're focused on providing that comprehensive marketing plan or communications plan, but that key messaging, the visual direction, and then also pulling that together with a specific timeline of execution. When is very important when you're rolling out your communications during a referendum process. So really taking a close look at that timeline and making sure that it's appropriate based on the stage and where you are in that process.
So one of the projects we just completed last not the last election, but last April, was the town of Delavan. Similar to your situation, that was a project where we had worked with the town of Delavan for almost a year prior to the point of them going to referendum. We had been providing fire management council with them, and brought out the need, the staffing need they had, and the direction they chose to go to referendum for that. So then we assisted them with that, gave them all the information and the documentation they needed to do the education process. The interesting part about that whole project was that when it came to the vote at the referendum, it passed in April 2021. And the interesting part is like was said before, when you go for a higher cost figure, it's more and more difficult. Well, they actually went to a referendum 3 years prior for a station, for a new fire station. So this was the second time back at everybody, 3 years later for another referendum to deal with the staffing issue. And yet it was still successful and went very well. And they're in the process. Now, we've also helped them on the backside of all of that, working to help them with staffing. They're actually going to be contracting with an agency to provide the paramedics to staff that EMS, their EMS units. And we work closely with them to provide staffing that could handle that. The other one that's not mentioned on there, and I know it was mentioned that Western Lakes Fire District is currently going for referendum. I'm also on the board and the subcommittee, so I've actually been working on that project for the last several months to get that project underway and moving.
And then just to do a deeper dive a little bit regarding the Fox Valley Technical College $65 million referendum that we helped spearhead those efforts. One thing I want to make sure that it's really important as you all move forward in your efforts is that focus on internal communications. And when I say internal, I'm referencing many of you, all of you on this call this evening, and that's making sure that everyone is singing from the same hymn notes, so to speak. So internal communications are really, really important as you move forward in your efforts, and also setting that narrative first to make sure that misinformation isn't getting ahead of what you're trying to share with your constituents. So, and we always say that the size of the community matters. Rural communities, smaller municipalities, it sometimes can be more complex. So how do you navigate all of that, all those different entities, and then make sure you're putting your best foot forward? So again, this was a rather large referendum, and we were supporting efforts overall, but there were strategies we put in place to ensure that we and this referendum were successful. And at the end of the day, this came out, I think it was more than 64% were in favor of this referendum. So as I mentioned earlier, that focus on internal communications is extremely important. You want to make sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to time to communicate what you're trying to communicate and how you communicate it. Then one of the things we talk about is preparing for any scenario. So one of the things we often talk about with referendum work and other projects is have a kind of backup to a backup. What if you go forward and it's a failed referendum? What's next? So have those conversations on the front end versus waiting to see what happens and then how you reconfigure for the next go around. So that's kind of what we talk about when we say the worst case scenario. That should be built out in your plan as well. And then talking about that personal community and media outreach. That is really something to emphasize, is as much as we talk about social media as a channel, for example, you can't overestimate the power of in-person outreach and town halls, for example. And then one of the other things that we want to make sure that we allude to when we're working with clients today, especially when it comes to a referendum and moving forward, is you have to acknowledge the impact of the pandemic and how does that impact what you're trying to communicate at this time when perhaps many are out of jobs or seeking work. So you just want to make sure that you're sensitive to the time that we're in right now.
That's another area too, if I can jump in right there on pandemic impact. With our public safety work and with Robert and Kevin and I, the last 2 years have been extremely busy and working with communities, dealing with the pandemic and dealing with how that's affecting their staffing and their personnel. And so that's something that we also bring to the table, is we have vast experience in that. We still have communities right now where we're part of their incident command briefings on a regular basis dealing with the pandemic.
And I think we are open for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. So when you had said about rural communities and referendums, is Delavan the primary community that you've worked on for passing a referendum? Or are there other rural communities that you've worked with?
For referendums, it would be Delavan and then Western Lakes. You know, Western Lakes is a complicated referendum because there's currently 4 and potentially 6 owners that will have to deal with it, and then there's contracted entities along with that.
Okay, thanks. All right, let's go around for council questions. Bill, I'll start with you.
No questions. Thank you.
Ryan?
No questions.
Teresa?
Muted, Teresa.
You're muted. There you go.
Jeff, I think when you were here before, you recalled that some of the issues that we dealt with, and one, for example, was to move from a part-time chief to a full-time chief as part of our assessment, and that we never did accomplish. And so I'm wondering, when you work with something like that, how do you plan to go from educating the public about this to motivating them or building support with a referendum? How do you get from one step to the next?
Yeah, I think in your situation, the education is going to be on the line personnel, not so much the administration. It's how are you handling the call volume? How long is it taking you for response times to get that first ambulance out the door, the second ambulance out the door? How are you covering your whole district, you know, which is spread out? How you manage the townships and their response times. I think that's the focus more than the leadership aspect from before, although that's still an issue, and you've kind of gone through 3 different chiefs on the 4th chief. So we will have to address that somewhat.
Okay. And that convinces people that they need a new fire station?
Well, you're actually going for staffing, right? Not the fire station in the referendum? It's my understanding, but.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, but ultimately that, getting people understanding that increasing the staffing and it's eventually going to be a part of this growth. I think that we need to build that understanding.
Yes, I would agree. And especially like I mentioned before, the last several months have been confusing. They've been confusing. It's been confusing for all of you, much less the citizens, to figure out what's really happening with the department. So I think part of the education process now is to get everybody on the same page, like Lisa mentioned here, and then get the public to understand that you do have your act together and this is the right direction. This is why it's the right direction.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Teresa. Larry?
Yeah, I appreciate the presentation. One of the thoughts or challenges that I kind of see is, and I'll be honest, I have somewhat of an advantage because I serve as an alternate to the Fire Commission. So I'm in on a lot of the discussions and information that's gone on the last couple of years and probably before that. But as an older person, I want to be sure that I, along with the rest of the aldermen, I'm sure, and women, would like to be sure that we're informed and we understand where this process is going. Does that make sense? And how would that be done? Would we see information before it's released to the press, see information before it's released to the public? How will I know that I give the correct answer when I'm buttonholed on the corner, so to speak? Tough question.
And Larry, I'd just like to thank you for that question, because that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to, we need to make sure our internal audience, and again, that's all of you and others, that they see and review and have their opportunity to ask questions before things go out to the public. Because when they go just from point A to point Z out to the public, that's when chaos ensues. So we want to make sure that everyone sitting around this table has a clear understanding and how to respond, because all of you are advocates or ambassadors out in the community. So everyone needs to have a consistent message and have a good, solid understanding before things reach the public.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Linda? Linda, you're on mute.
Thank you for the presentation. I don't have any questions. I appreciate all the questions everybody else has asked.
Miss anybody? I did not miss anybody.
Devin.
Devin. I
He's
thought
on
I might have
mute.
missed you.
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you for the presentation, though.
I'm gonna ask if any of the council members have any questions that maybe they wanted to ask Mueller Communications that maybe they didn't think of before. Does anybody have any follow-up questions for them? Okay. Does anybody else, is there anything else for anybody on this agenda item?
I mean, from my perspective, and this is ultimately up to the council and the mayor, how we want to move forward, but I think what would be appropriate is following this meeting, I'll send out the cost proposals or the cost considerations for each of these proposals, and then perhaps we can put this on a future council agenda, like I said, either our next one or in January for discussion and possible action. And during that interim period, if there is a desire to bring back one or both of the consultants for specific questions, or if the council wants to develop a list of questions that the consultants can respond to via email, I think that would be an appropriate next step. I mean, we bought ourselves a little bit of time with the fact that we're all pretty confident that we're not going to referendum in April. But again, it's not something that I think we want to drag out into February or March, because then we're going to be in the same boat for August. So I think that would be my recommendation, but it's ultimately up to this group and the mayor how they want to proceed.
I'm fine with putting it on next agenda, a future agenda. Do we have to take a vote on that, or we can just?
No, I don't believe we would need to take a vote on it. No.
Mark is shaking his head.
Yeah, the direction is, I think, is
And
clear. And obviously the council knows that if you think about this, I'm sure this will be the only thing you're thinking about for the next, couple of weeks is these presentations and the information that you'll be digesting. Certainly, if you come up with questions, you can always email them to me, and then I would email those questions to either both consultants or the individual consultants, and have everybody see the responses, so that we can proceed with that, or so just as you think.
Yep, and it's recorded, so if you want to take some time when you're bored over the holidays or something in the next week or two. But if you want to take some time and review the presentations again and think about it more, and see if there's any questions that you have after viewing them again, that might be another way to kind of help you process it and to be ready for further discussion. And I just want to say to everyone that you both had excellent presentations. I was very informed, and we haven't, well, I don't know, I've been an elected official over a decade, and we've never had to go to referendum before. So this is really, it's a future alteration for our city, and it's probably one of the biggest things that we're going to see done as far as changes to the city. One of the biggest things in all of our lifetime is how we are going to provide fire and EMS protection. So it is a really big deal, and even though we joke around, I know that the council and our staff take it really seriously because of what an important decision and an impactful decision it will have for generations to come and our city. So I was really pleased with both the presentations, and I'm really grateful that everybody took the time. It's not like there's 30 or 40 consultants out there jumping on the bandwagon to give presentations. So we're really pleased with the quality of presentation and the experience that everybody has brought to the table. And I appreciate you guys taking an interest in us. So, all right. Well, you're always free to stay because we do exciting team building at the end of the council meeting that everybody that's on the Zoom meeting is required to participate in, regardless of who you are or where you've come from.
I think Jeff probably remembers that, maybe.
And you're also free to leave, and that will have no bearing on any decisions going forward if you don't want to stay for team building, nor will it have any bearing on any decisions going forward if you stay for team building. So thanks everyone, and we're going to move on to discussion and possible action regarding an industrial track agreement and track maintenance agreement with Clausen Quality Chocolates regarding the TEA funded lead track.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So this is the item that has been on our agenda now. This is, I think, the fourth time when I was going back and looking at our previous agendas. This is the industrial track agreement with Clausen Quality Chocolates for the new rail line that will be constructed to serve their facility, as well as lands to the south and potentially to the east at some point in the future. In many conversations over the last probably 2 months between WSOR, who is the rail operator, and Wisconsin Department of Transportation and Clausen Quality Chocolates, we have come to an agreement on the industrial track agreement. One new piece of this is the track maintenance agreement, which has not appeared on a previous agenda, but is inherently connected to the industrial track agreement. This was a recommendation from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation to include this as part of the ITA in some of the more recent deliberations or negotiations, if you want to call them that. But now we are at a position to finally approve this. And once this is approved, this will then allow us to begin the construction process out there on the rail line, so long as Clausen Quality Chocolates agrees to these documents. They've had these documents in their possession for quite some time, and previous iterations of them as well. And in talking with them as recently as Friday, although I didn't speak to their attorney, I spoke to their lead engineer, who's been the most intimately involved in this project. He didn't foresee any issues, but nonetheless, we're at a position where the Common Council can do their part and approve these two agreements. And then hopefully Clausen Quality Chocolates will sign them shortly thereafter, and construction can begin on this project, on the rail portion of it. Obviously, the construction of the facility is well underway. They're actually putting their footings in, started their footings last week. So we're in a good spot to have these agreements finally agreed to. It's been, much like many other aspects of this project, it's been very complicated and very new to even folks on WSOR and DOT because of the length of this track. It's something that's pretty rare in the state. So it has taken some time, but we are there. We're at the 2-yard line. So I would recommend that the Common Council makes a motion to approve the industrial track agreement and track maintenance agreement with Clausen Quality Chocolates.
Ryan, any questions or comments?
No questions.
Kevin?
The only comment I'd have is, Al, you sure don't want to see this again for the next, 3 or 4 council meetings?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
we won't see this exact one, but I had a conversation on Friday about potentially another T grant. So for a different user. So this may not be the last time I see the TEA, and I'm not talking about the Earl Grey, So
No, I'm good with this one.
Thanks, Ryan. Devin?
No questions.
Larry?
No questions. Thank you.
Linda?
I do have a question, and I'm looking at my map as we speak here. Do these agreements cover the road crossing?
Yes.
And
the track.
And the track. So if somewhere down the road there needs to be a gate put in.
Oh.
Is that a cat? What was that? Is that a ghost, Linda?
Is it a cattail?
Oh no, that's my ditch. Go away. She loves to she's a lap cat.
Linda, did you get your question answered?
Well, I was thinking about I know in the city, if we were to put in any gates, it's like $1 million per crossing. And I just want to make sure that that's not something that we will be responsible for in the future.
Yeah, so and certainly Attorney Schrader can jump in on there. There's how you phrase the question at the last part there. We're really kind of talking about two different things. In the event that the railroad determines that like cross arms are required based on their determination, the railroad would be responsible for those costs. What you're referring to is at least what I think you're referring to is the multiple requests we've received over the last 20, 30 years about, can we make it a quiet zone? And as part of that, it would require arms to be placed at each crossing. That would be at the city's request. So therefore we would be responsible for it. Although the end result is the same, the genesis for the requirement of the installation of the crossings would be different. One would be at the city's request in terms of the quiet zone, and one would be at the determination of the railroad in terms of safety. So a good example of that is we've had this happen a couple of times in the city of Milton. even since I've been here, they've upgraded crossings at Vincent at no expense to the city. They upgraded the crossing on Parkview Drive at no expense to the city. It's because they determined that those upgrades needed to be done in order for their operations and their safety. If we were to preemptively request those things, that would be at our expense.
But I'm talking about like the roads around, the roads that are out in the industrial park.
Right. So if they determined that the crossing needed to be upgraded, if they determined that, meaning WSOR, based on safety factors in the operations of their facilities, that would be at the railroad's expense.
Okay. Thank you.
Is that correct, Mark?
Well, what it requires, there's two, as Al indicated, there's two agreements. They're related, but they're not identical and they have all different parties. So, and I think the difference is laid out actually most clearly in the track maintenance agreement as to the basis for the track maintenance agreement. In the ITA or Industrial Elite Track Agreement, the railroad assumes responsibility for ordinary repair and maintenance of the spur track. And the city only has responsibility in the event that there are weather events or third-party events causing damage to the track. And it also has responsibility for adding, well, and the city also has responsibility for the cost of adding signals and safety devices as required by railroad industry sidetrack standards or governmental regulations. And I would agree with Al that if there those, it would also include if the city wanted in its decision to install the crossing arms, which is indicated very expensive. Yes, that would also, I'm sure, be something that would be required to be paid for by the city. So as a result of that, the city has placed in the track maintenance agreement the responsibility of Clausen to reimburse the city for the cost of reimbursing the railroad. So in other words, between the railroad and the city has some reimbursement responsibilities occasionally, or it may never, but it potentially it could. And in the event it does, then through the track maintenance agreement, it will pass those costs on to Clausen Quality Chocolate. So that's, those two are related. We did, in our discussions with the railroad, have certain maintenance requirements removed that were being discussed for existing crossings. So we did accomplish that, but, and that's an existing expense that could have been assessed and is not. So this is only in the event of any change in what is designed, I guess that way. And I would agree with Al that in the event the railroad just decides on its own, it wants to install something else, that's its expense. But if it can point to railroad industry or governmental standards that require an upgrade, then this city would be responsible for reimbursement and then get reimbursed from Clausen. Does that answer your question?
Can you hear? She said yes.
Yes, thank you.
Larry?
I have no questions. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation. So,
Teresa?
No questions. Thank you.
Phil?
No, but thank you. That explanation was great.
Did I miss anybody? Brian?
You already asked me, but I'll go ahead and make a motion
Okay.
to approve the industrial track agreement and the track maintenance agreement as presented.
I'll second.
Second,
There's a motion and a second or a couple of seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Okay. That motion passes. Discussion and possible action regarding a work order from Baxter and Woodman to update the sanitary sewer use ordinance.
So this item is to, as indicated, update our sewer use ordinance. It has not been fully reviewed since it's been implemented in 1968. There was a few minor updates to billing and customer charges in 2010. Since 1968, there's certainly been plenty of changes to rules that we're required to follow for our wastewater treatment facility, for our discharge permit. So we just want to try to protect the facility, protect our plant, and put in place mechanisms to work with industrial users to do that, as well as other current standards that may not be present in the current ordinance. Baxter and Woodman has provided a work order for that, not to exceed fee of $23,700. Again, the actual amount billed will only be based on work time performed. This was budgeted or included as part of the utility budget. So recommendation is to approve the work order.
Okay, Teresa, any questions?
No.
Larry,
No, thank you. I'm good.
Linda,
Oh, thank you.
Ryan,
No questions.
Bill,
No question.
Devin?
No questions.
Okay, is there a motion? Linda,
I'll make a motion to approve the sewer use ordinance work order
from Baxter and Woodman?
not to exceed $23,700.
Larry,
I will second that motion.
there's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. Discussion and possible action regarding a work order from Baxter and Woodman to perform design and bidding services for the 2022 street improvements.
As part of the capital budget for 2022, Woodcrest Lane and Chapel Drive were selected to have street rehabilitation. Work will include some curb and gutter replacement, pavement replacement, as well as sidewalk on one side of each street. Again, a not to exceed work order was prepared by Baxter and Woodman for a fee of $21,300. Not much more on that unless there's questions.
Ryan, any questions?
No.
Devin,
No.
Larry,
No, I don't. Thank you.
Linda,
No.
Teresa,
No questions.
Bill,
No questions.
is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the work order for Baxter and Woodman to perform design and bidding services for 2022 street improvements for Blanche Drive and Wood.
It's actually Woodcrest and Chapel. There was that's a typo.
Oh,
The memo
okay.
indicates Woodcrest and Chapel.
Woodcrest and Chapel.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, moving on to cats and dogs. Discussion and possible action regarding the purchase services agreement extension with the city of Milton and Humane Society of Southern Wisconsin.
Go ahead, Jenny. I don't want to interrupt your vacation, but
Are you on vacation? I mean,
I
where are you?
am. Well, this background is a virtual background, so it's dark here. Yeah, I wish. No, I am in Punta Gorda, Florida right now. So, but The City of Milton and Humane Society of Southern Wisconsin has an existing purchase services agreement for the care and treatment of stray animals within the city. It does expire on December 31st of this year. The official extension has been sent over, and the term starts January 1st, 2022 and ends December 31st, 2025. The level of service is going to remain the same, but there will be an increase for each year of $400. So it was $5,000 and it's now increasing to $5,400. This increase was already planned, but they finally did get us the information and the official extension. So it was included in the 2022 budget. If there are any issues with this in the future, we can terminate the agreement with a 90 days written notice to the Humane Society.
And then Kelsey and Jenny will have to go out and chase down stray cats and dogs. So
I would say that sounds fun, but I'd end up with a household. So.
Not when it comes to raccoons, skunks, coyotes, or foxes, probably.
No, I believe actually all of this agreement only refers to dogs and cats. So.
Oh, so you guys are on the hook for raccoons, foxes, and coyotes, and cows. The occasional cow that may wander at a time.
We can either that, or we can address that on item number 11 too, if you want to.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
I like that idea.
You just staff sign up for a week for exotic animal collection. Okay, so enough of the fun and games. Are there any questions, Teresa?
No.
Linda? Bill?
No questions.
Larry?
I'm just curious. I've not heard, have we had any problems with their service? Any concerns registered with their service, just so I know for my own knowledge, I guess.
I have not heard of any. Is Scott still on?
Yeah, I see Scott had to leave at 7 o'clock.
That's fine.
I have not heard of any issues with the service they provide. I'm sure if we did, Scott would have had mentioned it to me, or Deputy Chief Chesmore. So
sure.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it is one of those situations where I don't want to say they're the only player in town,
right?
But they are equipped to do this. So yeah, I know that I recall hearing that there was maybe some issues 10-15 years ago, but not since I've been here.
Okay, that's helpful in case anybody ever asked me. So thank you. Otherwise, Devin. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Devin?
No questions.
Ryan?
No questions.
All right, is there a motion?
I would move approval of the services agreement extension with the Humane Society of Southern Wisconsin.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. I think I recall Jenny saying she had some paperwork for me to sign down in Florida, so I'll be taking off after the end of this meeting.
I will. You are more than welcome to, but I will say that I will be happy to do stray animals, dogs and cats in Wisconsin compared to down in Florida, where 4 houses over in the pond is a roughly 8-foot alligator. So I'm okay. I'm not going to do it out here.
All right, so now we got to decide what we're going to do with Mark Langer's employment. Al, did you want to talk about it?
Oh, sure. So as we're all aware, Howie Robinson officially retired a few weeks ago after 32 years of employment. And I know the council and I had discussed Mark Langer's assuming his position once Howie'd retired. But it kind of dawned on us that we actually never made it official. So Mark has been kind of a bit of an imposter the last couple of weeks. Nobody has caught it, so we figured we better, end the charade and let Mark do what we wanted him to do. So Based on ordinances, he does need to be appointed as the Department of Public Works Director by the Common Council. So there would need to be an appointment of Mark and then an approval of the Common Council to make Mark our Director of Public Works.
And then is this require like a 35-year commitment to the city then? Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, he's only at least got to do 33 to be one
Okay.
more than Howie, so we can.
All right.
At least.
All right. So with that understanding and contingency, Mark, are you good with this?
He
It's
loves.
a long time.
It's a long time, but I think Al's already committed to it, so I don't know. It's like the Hotel California. Once you're at the city, you never get to leave again.
They never get to leave.
So, okay, so I'll appoint Mark Langer as DPW director, and do you guys want to approve of that appointment? Unless there's questions or comments, or you want to make sure he's qualified for the job, question him, whatever. Linda?
I'll make a motion that we approve the appointment of Mark Langer as the Director of Public Works.
Second.
Second.
All right, anybody want to roast Mark right now? I can go around. Instead of roasting him at his retirement, we'll roast him now. Okay.
Does he cook?
Where's the donuts?
He's the subject of our team building, so.
Oh, I love it.
All those in favor, there's a motion and a second. All those in favor.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Anybody abstaining? Okay, we have a new public director of public works.
Congratulations.
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 Or I'm
Thanks.
sorry, whatever it may be.
Depends on the day maybe, but thanks everybody. Appreciate the support.
Okay, so I think we have review of October financial statements, and maybe Kelsey and Al are doing it together, or maybe just Kelsey, but Kelsey will be required to answer any and all of your questions, whether they're about finances or anything else you want to ask her tonight.
Well, I think it's just me, but the October financial statements are attached. I did not see any red flags when I was going through them, and it looks like we're in a pretty good position going into year end. So I can attempt any questions.
I have one, Kelsey.
Okay.
Go
Based
Larry.
Based on what you've seen so far the last couple months, right? You've been looking at the financials, or at least the last month for sure. Is it your sense that we will have a deficit, not a deficit, an extra amount in our budget unspent for the year? Or is it hard to tell? Just curious.
I believe we will, but I'm not positive. I'll have to look closer and we'll have a better understanding once November is finished up, which
Yeah.
we should be able to work through that here fairly quickly now. So
That's fine. I was just curious if we'd have a surplus or not, so. But thank
Go
you.
Kelsey, do not overpromise and underdeliver.
No, I'm not gonna hold you to the fire about that. I just was curious, so.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Maybe. Thank you. Otherwise, I think I really appreciate all you do. So thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions about anything? Just chime in. The structure is gone. We've been at this for a while now. All right, so moving on to general items. So we've been fine tuning the IGA and petition in regards to the Edgerton Fire District and the intergovernmental agreements with the townships. And you probably remember that there's a meeting coming up December 15th where all of us as a meeting of the whole, like all the city and all the townships, are gonna have like a big meeting, like it's gonna be posted. And the thought process is that we would likely all vote on these documents on December 15th. But I was wondering about if you guys wanted like a question and answer short meeting, like on December 14th, prior to the December 15th vote, to see if there was anything that you could think of between now and then. Or if you feel like they're pretty straightforward. There was really a couple of minor changes that are going to come through. But I'm just curious as to what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, just to add to that. So the mayor and I, Attorney Schrader, the town's attorneys, and all four town chairs met today at Nolan and Mowat, or now just Nolan law office, to discuss the last tweaks to those agreements. So there was some discussion in the room about how will things go on December 15th, meaning next week, Wednesday. Is everybody going to be there? Is it everybody's intent to approve the petition? And we all agreed that it would be our intent to hopefully approve the petition next week, Wednesday, at that meeting of all municipalities. But Anissa and I were kind of talking off to the side. Several of the town's boards will have meetings before that meeting, so their town boards can talk about the petitions or discuss the petitions. And we were talking about whether we thought that would be a good idea for the city council to have that opportunity as well. Because really the goal of next week, Wednesday, is if everybody's in agreement to approve the documents as presented without a lot of kind of, back and forth or gotchas or anything like that. Not that we would suspect that, but we really want to avoid that. I think the comment that came up in the discussion today that really stuck with me is that this will be a historic meeting and one that we really want to put, everybody wants to put their best foot forward. So if there are lingering questions about the IGA and the petition, it's our hope that those questions aren't aired in front of all municipalities when we easily have the opportunity to answer those questions well in advance of that meeting, so we don't look disorganized or disharmonious or disenchanted with the process. So I'm being a little bit more aggressive than Anissa's comments, but really that's, we don't want this to be a dog and pony show. We want this to be and I'm not saying that I'm not saying that everybody, that this is a rubber stamp moment. I'm not saying that it's a foregone conclusion. What I'm saying is, if there are concerns and questions, let's please try to address those before the meeting of everyone, because my guess is there's going to be many members of the press there. There's probably going to be members of the Edgerton Fire Commission there. And if the meeting devolves into finger pointing or yeah buts, it's not gonna bode well for us. So sorry for being a little bit more kind of forward than Nisa was, but that was our thought process.
Well, and I think part of it is too that the chairs and myself and Al and Mark and Mike, the town's attorney, so we've had opportunities to sit at the table with each other and go through this and have discussions that you all haven't had. Mm-hmm. And so, we're in thinking about the process is how do we make sure that everybody understands what they're reading, and how do we ensure that everybody is comfortable with the process that essentially has been, we've participated in, but all of you haven't had the opportunity to. And at the same time, the towns have already been doing some of this for months, right?
Yeah, they've already, each one of the towns has already approved a previous version of the petition. So that process kind of changed once we entered into the equation. So again, we want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with it. and fully understands what they're voting for if we do come to a vote on next week, Wednesday.
So it's not like an agenda item to like discuss and take action on. And Mark has really been very good about biting his tongue. So I don't, it's not like we can have a decision tonight and we don't have, we have time to schedule a December 14th
Correct.
meeting. So, I think that, Al and I are kind of leaning towards doing that and having it take place by Zoom. And maybe then, if people can't come, they could email Al. Larry.
Well, that was going to be my thought too, is kind of like what Al talked about earlier in another agenda item. We could email questions if we have them ahead of time, and you could answer, you and or Nisa or Mark or the combination, and share it with everybody. That's just my thought too.
You absolutely can, and we always encourage that.
Yeah.
But what I guess I would caution us, and I know we're all really busy, but we can't be reading this right before the meeting. And I'm guilty of that too, right? I am guilty of reading things right before the meeting. I am not criticizing anybody at all. It's just that this is so important that we have to be really, really prepared to act. So that's the only general item that I have, and you guys can think about it, and I'll move on so we're not too off the agenda here.
I think it's a good idea.
But
I would ask if we do that, if we can make it a little bit later than 6. Otherwise, I won't be able to attend.
Yep. Sure.
7:30.
Okay. So committee reports.
Historic preservation met last week, and we're still working on our work plan for next year. That's we're also talked about signage. Anything else you want me to cover? Is that's kind of the bare bones what we did?
Yeah, I think that's everything. One other thing the commission's talking about doing is trying to put together an oral histories project that would focus on the merger of Milton and Milton Junction. So trying to get some of those oral histories from people who lived through the historic event, and then finding a place to archive those as well. So that's something that we'll be diving into a little bit more in the spring.
And then you can move on to the
fire department.
The fire department collaboration.
It probably wouldn't hurt to have
I think it would be good to do an oral history while people still remember it. Any other committee reports? Did Parks and Rec meet? No.
Parks and Rec next meeting for
that's right.
Next meeting for them isn't until January. And then Story Gardens met earlier this. Wait, Ashley, did Story Gardens meet?
No.
Okay.
I think it's been a while.
Okay. I'm still trying to adjust to it being December right now, so forgive me.
Okay, did the burger eating already take place?
No, that is on December 20th, my birthday. So that's going to be we'll be at Junction Pub. The Parks and Recreation Commission likes to get together just for a nice holiday gathering. So they do 2-for-1 burger night at the Junction Pub, and that's going to be at 5:30 on December 20th.
Okay. Anything else for committee reports? Okay, staff reports. Ashley?
We're selling raffle tickets right now for serving trays that were decorated by students at each of the schools. So we haven't checked that out yet. Stop in. I believe they're also on our website. Tickets are $2 or 6 for $10, and we're selling them until December 19th. And then all money raised will go towards creating some more fun kits to check out. So our kits contain like books and toys and educational things. But speaking of kits, we received a grant from Wisconsin Humanities to create some travel kits. So these will have books and cookbooks and DVDs and games from popular and international travel locations. And then we will hopefully be interviewing people who have traveled to these locations for our podcast. And then
Okay.
keep an eye on the library's Facebook page for next week, because we have another grant to announce for Story Gardens.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's
Very
exciting.
exciting.
So, and your travel kits, are they, and you may have said this and I didn't hear it. Is it, if you've traveled, is it within the state of Wisconsin, the United States, the world?
So yeah, we're gonna make one for like Peru and Japan and Australia, one for Alaska, and there's one more I can't recall. We're gonna start off with 5 of them and then kind of see how they go and hopefully create some more.
Okay, got it. That's exciting.
Yeah, so that is it.
Jenny, what is the weather like? That's your first question to answer. Is it still daylight down there? What is going on?
No, it is not daylight. That was, I don't know, it seemed early, like 4:30, 4:45. And right now it says it is 69 degrees. So getting colder, but
Okay,
it was,
Inga,
yeah.
just mute her and kick her out of the meeting right now. Just kick her right out.
Yes, I heard it's not perfect up there. But yeah, so that is all that I have for that part of it. Yes, it's a little toasty. But as far as for work items, as a reminder, the first day to circulate nomination papers for the 2022 elections, it was December 1st, and the deadline is 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 4th in 2022. And just as a reminder too, for any of the incumbents, that the notification to file a non-candidacy paper, it will be December 24th. And that is all that I have right now.
All right, and thank you for joining us from a very warm vacation spot. So we appreciate you. All right, Kelsey. Did you get a lottery ticket? Do you play the lottery? I heard the lottery's up again tonight.
I did not get one, but we'll see. I have tax bills and I'm working on proofing them and balancing them so that we can get them mailed out here, hopefully by the end of the week, and then complete final reports for the Department of Revenue in the county.
All right, lots of exciting stuff going on for you. Although unfortunately you're not in, 70-degree weather. Okay, thank you. The Director of Public Works.
So the utility staff has been doing some gas collection here the last week. That's been going pretty well. They've really picked it up and are doing a real good job with that. So that'll be good to have that information that we've never really had to that detail within the city's system now. Leaf collection and street sweeping is basically completed. We're preparing for the picnic Friday. So I think everybody's aware of that. For Howie, some tree trimming and miscellaneous cleanup of some brush that needs to take place, some of it along some of the plow routes that they've noticed here as they've done some of the prep work and preparing for snow. And Payzer ratings were also submitted here in the actually today. So things are happening.
So what is the weather report? I mean, you still are responsible for giving us a weather report.
It's cold today, cold tomorrow, and then it's supposed to warm up a little bit.
All right. Did you have to put anything on the roads and prep for this awful weather and flurries that we've had?
Yeah, they did go out today. Like I said at the last meeting, they're calibrating some of the equipment, some stuff that's never been done on some of the equipment. So today was a good day. They're able to test some of it.
Is there salted sand available yet?
There is salted sand available. That's at Public Works here, 150 Northside Drive, right by where the yard waste bins are or were.
Okay, good job. Your first report as director. Thank you very much. Inga.
Okay, one thing I've started working on is implementing NeoGov Perform. It's an additional module in the NeoGov suite of products, and this is for performance management, something that was included in the budget for this year, and I'm working on implementing that with the help of the leadership team. So excited to better formalize that process across departments and roll that out in early 2022.
And also, we're going to be working on hiring for the position for the Milton Youth Coalition.
Yes,
Is it director or coordinator? I can't remember.
Project coordinator.
Project coordinator.
Ashley, myself, Kelsey, and Al, I believe, are meeting on Thursday this week to talk about just responsibilities related to that grant, but also the recruitment for that position.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And Al.
Yeah, not too much in the way of updates beyond what we've kind of discussed. Fire department obviously is kind of the big item. Economic development continues to be kind of off the charts. Had at least 3 meetings in the last week's worth of time with potential developments. One of them is quite large, not as large as CQC obviously, but quite large. So there's every year it just continues to ratchet up more and more and more. The decisions we've made in the past have come to fruition very excellently. So yeah, we'll just keep plugging along.
All right. The only report I have, I guess, is that we did a tree lighting Sunday at 6 p.m. We also had I can't remember what it was called by the chamber, the lights, tour of lights.
Celebration of lights.
Celebration of lights. Celebration of lights. This past weekend, and the gathering place had hot dogs with Santa, right? They had some Christmas stuff going on this past weekend too. Yeah, I don't know, like, where are you guys at? You're not even like chiming in here about all this Christmassy cool stuff going on. And a Christmas carol, right? But that's at the Milton House coming up, right?
Right.
Did I miss anything?
There's breakfast with the Grinch on Saturday, this upcoming Saturday.
Is it at, where is that at?
I think it's at Hope Lutheran Church.
Hope Lutheran Church. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If that's it, let's go right into team building.
Anissa?
Yes.
I was just wondering, does anybody know anything about any of the local concerts in the schools, or is it too late? Are they doing any band and choir concerts? I don't have in school, so
I'm not sure about that. I know that the elementary school at East, they're doing a virtual winter concert. But the Madison Brass Band, I think it's called, they're going to be playing at the high school, I think on Friday in the evening.
And you can go to the individual schools' websites and look at their calendar of events. They all have calendar of events, and you can see what they have upcoming in December for that too. And Little Women is going to be at JPAC. I always think of that as kind of a Christmassy play. All right, are we ready for team building? Yeah. I don't know if you've been following the news, but there's been a couple of crazy things that have happened where people have been stranded in very unique situations because of the weather. So your team building question is, if you're going to get stranded in a snowstorm overnight somewhere, would you rather be in a pub in northern UK or at an IKEA store?
IKEA.
Yeah, beds there.
Yeah, exactly.
Gary?
Pub.
Okay. Linda? Devin?
I'm going to say the pub. It will be much more friendly on the wallet.
Yes.
Okay, so just so I remember, Linda's the pub, Ryan's IKEA, Larry, you're the pub,
Mhm.
Devin's the pub. Okay, I'm sure you all know I'm the pub.
I understand that the president of IKEA was just elected president of Sweden. And he's still putting together his cabinet.
Well,
That's an old one, Bill.
I'll go with the pub too.
Oh. There's still time to influence other people. I don't know. Al probably hasn't had a good night's sleep in what, 6-7 years?
Yeah, but the pub can help with that too, I guess. I don't know.
Yes, that's true.
You know, if it's in the northern UK, it's kind of neat. You get to be someplace that you not typically at. You know, if it's IKEA, you know, you're in Kenosha or what is it? Not Arlington Heights, Schaumburg. So
Schaumburg, yeah.
I'd go with the pub just because you're going to be in a cool place.
Who can resist fish and chips, eh?
Well, considering I have drank and ate around the world at Epcot, I would agree with you, Larry.
Or bangers and mash.
I'll take the pub.
Tracy's pubbing it with us. Pints. We'll have pints.
50-50 options. Speak up.
I'll go with IKEA. Just give me a secluded area with a bed and a book, and I'll be good.
Basically, your whole
your room.
Basically, my
room,
apartment,
basically.
yeah. I'm fine with that.
An upgraded version of my bedroom.
Charlie won't be at IKEA though.
He wouldn't be at the pub either, so.
Did someone vote and I didn't hear him?
No, I will go. I have only been to IKEA once, and the meatballs were not that great that day, so I'm going to go with the pub.
I mean, for all we know, Jenny could be at a pub right now.
Yeah.
No, no, I am not. I'm in a 55 and older community right now, so it's actually pretty active though. So I think I'm actually missing the soup fest right now, but that's okay.
And Domino's.
I'll go with the
No.
IKEA only because I've only been there once and be interested to walk around again and see what's there.
Okay, so Mark's gonna do the IKEA.
I'm going
come
with
home.
IKEA as well.
So we expect like you people that are going to IKEA to build something to come and rescue all of us that are stuck at the pub
In the UK.
in the UK.
Are you required to put your own bed together to sleep on it though, or can you use the models?
I assume you can use the models.
Okay.
Might be a little,
They use
might
the
be a little-
models. They
might
use
be a
the
little-
models.
depends on how many people are in there though. Might turn into a Thunderdome.
Mhm.
Yeah, with all the nooks and crannies, there's plenty of places you can go.
Who are we missing?
So initially I was going to go with the pub, and then someone said, but IKEA has beds. So I'm going with IKEA. And they have meatballs, and the meatballs are always good, Jenny.
No.
Maybe it was just a bad day. Maybe it was just a bad day.
I didn't even know you could get meatballs. I mean, seriously, we're getting fish and chips and bangers and mash or whatever. And bites.
I was very lucky because the day that I went was part of a treasurers conference, and they actually had a behind the scenes tour. So I was very lucky, and I was very excited about the meatballs, and just to live up to the hype, in my opinion, only.
You know, Jenny, maybe the meatballs were made by the Swedish chef from the Muppets. that day, perhaps.
Murkish, 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 murkish.
It is
Exactly.
possible. That is possible.
All right, we're waiting. We're waiting patiently. Any bets on where our attorney's gonna go? There's no fishing at IKEA. There's no fishing at the pub.
Well, it depends.
You can find fish models or pictures at IKEA.
Oh, having been to a pub in Europe, I would have to go back there again just to check it out, I guess. So, yep.
You know what? I think it probably would be pretty entertaining if we were all stranded at a pub together.
It would be
If we
something.
survive.
Interesting.
Mark, you could be my guide because I've never been to the UK, so that would be good.
Yeah,
We'd
he'd have to
draw
be mine too.
non-disclosure. Go ahead, Linda.
I said he'd have to be mine too.
I want to notice, I want to know how Jenny is going to notice this meeting. What it's going to say at Hometown Ace Hardware and Piggly Wiggly if we have a quorum at the pub.
I was wondering the same thing. I figured we'd have to do it somehow virtually.
That's why we need our attorney there.
I'm not sure how that would work.
Probably not in the contract, but we'll have to include it eventually.
We'd figure it out.
Yep, we will. All right, so our next meeting may be December 14th, for sure December 15th, and December 21st.
Could you just remind us which one of those are in person? And that, because I'm thinking just the 21st? Or
just the 15th.
It would be the 15th and the 21st
And the
are scheduled to
21st.
be in person. Yeah.
Okay.
If we have one on the 14th, it would be virtual.
Okay. All right. A motion to adjourn to the pub. No, just kidding.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. Ryan
Second.
moved. Linda
Second.
second. Teresa second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Well, we'll be seeing you all soon. So
yes,
Stay warm.
thank you.
Stay warm,
See you
Jenny.
later.
Bye.